the YouTube channel, the Grey Man channel, and I have a very special guest here is Jason Aaron Wood. The thing with Jason that's pretty amazing is he's been a great supporter of Metal Devastation Radio. So it's nice to finally get to interview you. I know a lot of DJs have interviewed you from Metal Devastation Radio, but yeah, it's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, it's only been like 5-6 years now. We've sort of known each other and never really spoke. So it's good
I know, other than on chat, you know. So,
right? Yeah, it's all been text.
Yeah, and I just want to just go through some of your history. I've been sort of having a look through the metal archives and seeing like you've been in a lot of bands before you sort of going solo. So yeah, I just want to start from the beginning, really. Like how did you sort of get into like playing guitar? And obviously you're obviously a pretty virtuoso player. So did you get lessons? Did you teach yourself? How did it all start?
It really honestly started with a total whim that I decided one day I was really interested in checking out Iron Maiden, and
as we all were.
It was weird because I hadn't heard them, and I'm like, yeah, I got to hear more of that. I was really, this was the 80s still, for the tail end of the 80s for me, so I was kind of a little late catching the bus there, but I was a little kid, so. But it was, I would see the posters. We have a store, Spencer Gifts here, which always had 2 or 3 of the full wall posters of the artwork, and I was just I would just sit there, in the mall. My mom would be off in some other store. I'm just looking and at the detail in these things, and it's like, my God. So really, it was Eddie. Eddie stuck me in, and I just checked out. I got Peace of Mind first, and hooked immediately. Yeah. I got Power Slave right after that, and I wore those tapes out. I binge listened to Iron Maiden for I was 9 at this time, so it was I discovered Black Sabbath on a whim by accident too, and Ozzy as a result, and Dream Theater started coming on within the next 2 years, and Headbangers Ball. So just between that little tiny bubble of bands, I was like, I gotta get a guitar. This is just I think I'm gonna need to do this myself too, because there were a lot of things, and actually at the same time Nirvana too, which is I almost kind of went in that direction for a little while there, just kind of and so that Nevermind came out kind of right in that little window of time too. So obviously very different direction for guitar music, but that was sort of the bubble where I decided I think I need to pick up a guitar and start trying to see if I can come up with or get these sounds I actually have in my head, because I would be listening to something, but I hear it sort of going a different way in my head. Like, oh, that would be cool if they did that. Well, they didn't do that. Yeah. The only way to make it go that way is I'm going to have to pick up a guitar and make it go that way myself.
Yeah. The funny thing is that is exactly how I got into Iron Maiden, just through the artwork. I was around your age. I was 9, but I'm slightly older, so it was actually Live After Death that was out. And I saw that Live After Death post. I was like, "Oh my God," And then Summer in Time come out, and that artwork is stunning, So yeah, and you listen to music, and it's game over, isn't it?
I love it. It's especially. Oh yeah, I know. It's plus that's Somewhere in Time artwork too. You just once you know anything about Iron Maiden's history, you can just get so much more out of just staring at that. And even though it was smaller, I kind of like the cassette tape days when you fold that whole thing out and there's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, their whole history is just right in that artwork. It's amazing. So.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I started with tapes.
I would say single-handedly, Iron Maiden's the real reason I picked up the guitar. Yeah. So and honestly, I've been binge listening a lot of Somewhere in Time this past month.
Yeah.
Several times a week over and over. So it's still kind of in there, and they're still amazing to me, no matter how much I progress as a musician. Those guys are just amazing.
They are. But
after a little while, I did broaden my horizons a touch, and it wasn't actually long. I think the first thing that really started to get me into some it was too heavy for me at the time. I wasn't really quick to adopt death style vocals. And so some kid in school sold me his Death Individual Thought Patterns CD for $4 because he hated it. And I loved the music behind it. And it took me a minute to wrap my head around the vocals. But Andy LaRoy is in that. And I realized that's the King Diamond guitarist. So I started to check out King Diamond. I started going down this much darker path, like right around that, you know, like 93, 94 ish. And I guess that sort of primed me to sort of appreciate, even though King Diamond is hardly what I'd call death metal, I think that dark aesthetic helped me to really appreciate Morbid Angel once I finally heard it. Oh yeah, I get what that voice is. Oh yeah, okay, I can appreciate that. Yeah. So I think Morbid Angel is easily one of my top 5 bands of all time. If not, I'm hesitant to say like a favorite band, but if I had to pick one, it might be that. Because Morbid Angel is just like, there's such an inventive approach at that point. So I think that band single-handedly kind of informed my thinking so much, because it's not, you know, I wonder how often they really ever stay with one scale, even within a single riff. And it's not important because it's still utterly melodic. It's just, you know, it's exactly their sort of Lovecraftian kind of Necronomicon based, twisted, you know, perverted sounding, intentionally ugly kind of melodies. And it's like, well, okay, this is how you play with the chromatic scale. And this is how it just matters what note's going on right now. And so it's that, between that band and strangely Shostakovich, similar kinds of thinking. It's just like, you know, the Russian composers in particular have a lot of similarities in that regard in terms of the inventiveness of creating a melody. It's like, yeah, we know the shape of this melody, but let's do something that hasn't been done before.
I mean, like definitely, if you've started with a band like Death, they're almost like a family tree band, aren't they? You can, that guitarist play for that band and that band, so it's a good band to start. And of course, Morbid Angel I love Morbid Angel as well. They're just pretty phenomenal, aren't they? Them first 2 albums, like, I mean, technical wise, I can imagine you being a musician, you hear that and think, oh, yeah, that's different, that's technical. Let's see if I can do that, you know. So what I was going to ask you is, like, go on.
I was going to say, I kind of have to credit them in terms of learning how to, like, accidentally stumbling on how to pick fast too. Dawn of the Angry in particular, trying to play along to that track kind of helped me get my head wrapped around like picking fast in particular.
So I mean, so what happened from there? You're I guess you're a teenager or whatever. Did you take lessons, or are you purely self-taught?
I did take lessons. I had a short spree of different teachers in the very beginning. I had a lesson like right when I first got my guitar, like one lesson from one guy my mom worked with. He taught me the pentatonic scale. But after that, I took lessons for a while at this shop, and I kind of, in a way, I got some of the really important details about technique, although I wasn't really ready. Like, it's one of those things, like when you watch a movie the first time, you don't really pick everything up, but when you go back in there, you notice all kinds of things. And it's like, I didn't have them to refer back to, but stuff just, apparently it's stuck, and like some really important things, just like you should be able to alternate pick everything. And it's just like certain really important things about that. And that all sort of made it in on that first teacher. Then I went somewhere else because honestly, I really wasn't getting very far, and that wasn't, you know, a lot of that was on me. But I didn't know I didn't have anything else to work with, and I was still in this mode of like, teach me how to play this song, teach me how to play that song. And my drugs driving my teacher crazy, and so it's kind of my fault. I really wasn't getting anywhere, and I moved on to another teacher, and I learned the basics of like scales and modes and thirds harmony and essential chord construction, and that was only over like a couple of months really there. But I have to say, most of my theory knowledge I learned from anyone else was entirely during those couple of months. I was like 14, 15. And then I took a little period of time. I went back to the original store I used to go to, and I actually took classical guitar for maybe a year. Then I was a bad teenager and cost my mom some money and had to forfeit some lessons. And I had a 4-track recorder at home, so I figured I'm just going to teach myself. This should be easy. I have everything. I got overconfident, as a teenager often does. And then took the really long route from there. And it's all been self-teaching from there. And that was not the way I'd go if I knew any better now, but well.
You done well with it, though.
So, No, thank you.
So, yeah.
Never ending. All it takes is constant obsession. That's
Yeah,
20
practice
days. That's all.
and more practice. Yeah. So so let's go back to some. We got Sack Moonshine in, actually, our boss and leader. He just wrote there saying, he just wrote saying Morbid Angel rules, which is absolute fair comment. So let's get back to some of your early bands, actually, because it was just kind of interesting. Like in the 2000s, late 90s, there's quite a few bands you were playing in. I was at a band called Abominus, like a death metal band from New Jersey. Do you want to tell us how that happened?
It's really weird that I'm listing that. Okay, fairly okay. To be fair, yes, I technically was in that band, but it was like I was really surprised when I saw that. I leave it up there because I get a chuckle out of it. But I auditioned for that band. I got in, and then they broke up before we ever even met. So it wasn't really. I did jam with them one day. Literally one day. That was for the audition. I had a hard time keeping up. They had a lot of material they were already familiar with. In that band, I was also Neil from Krieg, Lord Imperial. And I did also participate in that. That was another. That's probably next on your list, but there weren't a lot of like metal musicians. I don't mean to discount like hardcore. There's a lot of hardcore musicians in the 90s bubble of South Jersey at that time. So that was pretty much there was anybody you were in a band with is probably in some other band now. You're gonna bump into them in another band you're in at some point too. But we actually kind of just passed each other. I think he was just on his way out, just as I was on my way into Abominus. I think I might have actually been his replacement in Abominus. So I think that might have, if I remember correctly, it was 97-ish.
Yeah. Was that your first band?
Kind of, yeah. I guess it sort of really was. I mean, like I had like we sort of had a band with friends of mine in high school, and we jammed together for years and years. I'm most comfortable working with the drummer as a result of that. But I think that's really the first like band that was doing things and recording stuff, and
Okay, then you went on to I don't know the order exactly, but there was another band called Ephemeral Sun.
Ephemeral Sun,
That
kind of came after. So I mean, I had a period where I basically just sort of I encountered the band Rain Fell Within first. I was just a fan of them and listened to them, and happened to look on their website one day and noticed that their guitarist was moving away, and I was like, if only. And then I bumped into him at a show, and I was like, what's it gonna hurt? I just bumped in. I was like, hey, you need a guitarist? I play guitar. I was already a logo designer for them on the side, which I never made a logo for them in the end, but they knew me already from that prospect, and I got into that. And essentially Ephemeral Sun was when Rain Fell Within fell apart, and most of us got back together and made a totally different band, much more progressive. And eventually, I don't think that my style really actually worked in that band. And so, I mean, I was with them for a year and a half, and we played. I think we played like one show. We opened for Symphony X, which is nice.
Oh, wow, it's big.
Nice first show, right? It's nice first show. But I feel like I actually feel like they're a better band now that the guy who replaced me is in. I feel like he was a much better fit style wise. And I think their sound is a lot better now than honestly when I was in it. But all of that took place in about 2 years, tops, 2.5 years. That was all the whole thing that brought me to the DC area was that basically moved here for Rain Fell Within. They broke up within a year, started Ephemeral Sun. I was out within a year and less than a year and a half.
That's how you met Laurie? Is that right? Because I know Laurie did some guest vocals and stuff on them albums.
Initially, she was the backing vocalist for Rain Fell Within, and then when we formed Ephemeral Sun, we spent a couple months just as the instrumentalists, and then we kind of put the word out. We already knew Laurie, and we were friends with her, so she auditioned and like blew us away immediately.
Yeah,
so she was the vocalist of Ephemeral Sun for quite a few years after I left, actually too. And then, she had all kinds of other stuff on her plate, and we had Toda Spawn in within another year of that. So actually 6 months after I left Ephemeral Sun, we already were starting the first Toda Spawn EP. So that's sort of been that's the first main band, I guess I would say, that I'm still,
Yeah.
that's still, I mean, I'm sure from the outside it doesn't look very active, but there's a nearly a whole album on my hard drive for it still. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that because we've all been wanting a new album for so long, and you said there's an album, there is an album, but it's
right
getting it
here,
out.
it's on this hard drive right here. I'm pointing at, but it's that doesn't do anybody any good, and it's just, you know, a lot of it's written. There's some things I need to retake, but I mean, like we went through like quite a while. I mean, like after we did our EP, you know, we played shows for several years and then finally recorded Sleep Now Quiet Forest. And then just kept, you know, we kind of went through the Spinal Tap drummer situation on a smaller level for a little while. And you know, we found somebody who was really reliable and got us through. We were playing shows with that material even up until our last show was 2010. And
right. Wow.
And I mean, and that was, we were playing that same material we had been writing since 2005. And I mean, I don't know if I don't know if it's the right mindset to have as a band, but I think we were just tired of playing it. I know like Metallica would always say they were really sick of playing Enter Sandman, and I can kind of relate after, you know, a bunch of years of just playing the same material. And like, we had all kinds of material that was still in the works. We were writing new stuff, but like by that point, I mean, we had another show possible, you know, in like 2012, and we almost went with it. We're like, no, we just got to finish this material. And it's, you know, we backed out of that show, and it just hasn't been something that just comes all the way together. But we had a period of time, we parted with our keyboard player kind of right as the album came out, so we had to make a real quick shift and started doing backing tracks. I know it's like the abomination of live shows, but in terms of, you know, we had shows booked right as Sleep Now Quiet Forest came out, and didn't really want to like back out of those shows. So, you know, in a quick hurry, we had to kind of pull together the ability to make sure that those tracks were there. So, you know, that's what got us through from 2008 until 2010 playing shows there. And I mean, in a way it tightened us up, because you actually have to play to a click in an in-ear monitor to stay in time to your backing tracks. So, I mean, we actually got a lot of really good feedback about our live show improving instantaneously as a result there. But even still, you know, I mean, that period of time after the keyboardist left, he played a pretty big role in writing the material on that album. And so that wasn't how Todespondent started, and it kind of became that when a bunch of people joined. But it, you know, and I like Sleep Now Quiet Forest a lot, but it's sort of not what Todespondent started off aiming to be. It wasn't
okay, that's interesting.
It wasn't supposed to be that progressive, but it was also a thing. Like all that time, I started Old Sonoof all the way back in like '96.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just kept recording really lousy, bad recordings, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about songwriting or proper recording or mixing or anything like that. But I had riff after riff after riff, and it sounded good to me. So the idea was born a long time before, and all that time, I mean, the first El Sonoof album actually came out in 2013. So all this time, there's this sort of lead up, and I'm just like not getting anything out. So I think it was, from my point of view, I was kind of jamming some of my own influences, sort of where they didn't belong in a way in Todespondent. And that's where I think some of that prog influence ended up, from my point of view, coming in. I mean, I have my own riffing style and everything anyway, but I mean, I can gear my writing to whatever I really need to. And so I didn't need to do that. I wasn't really aware of it while I was doing it either. It was something that I think I became aware of around like 2015. Like, I had been doing that all this time. But, anyway, though, I mean, that material, though, we had to, after the keyboardist left, it took maybe 3 years to really get to a point where we were writing material that was sort of like what Todespondent had been supposed to be in the first place. So there's, you know, in addition to my hard drive full of songs that are ready for the album, there's probably like 3 times as many, you know, that are never ever going to be seeing the light of day ever. I almost think about, you know, like going in there, borrowing a riff, because it's never going to get used anywhere else anyway. But, you know, so much more exciting to write new material. So
yeah, I mean, as far as the new album Todespondent, I mean, so are you saying it won't get released, or are you trying to get it released?
Oh, I mean, all right, well, we were supposed to have been releasing an album a year, to be perfectly honest, but I'm not really sure where things stand because it's been so long. And so, I mean, there's a label waiting for this album, I think. We don't have much to talk about, so we don't talk, you know. So, you know, sort of like wait until there's good news to give to tell them anything. And so I don't know. We don't know if they're going to be interested by this point. Again, I wouldn't blame them if they're not. Having been one of the only people on Earth that have heard it, I know I'm probably biased, but it's been a long time coming to this point. So I think that if they heard it, they probably would be interested. Because we've had a decade, 12 years or so to grow as musicians. And so, I mean, and this is a very, by now, I would hope so, it's a very inspired album now. And so, I mean, I'm very proud of it. If only it could ever just, you know, we can get it done. That's, you know, one thing or another always keeps coming up. So, I mean, Lori has had lots of soundtrack work ever since then, and I kind of took off into my solo career, and so I mean, like that's you know,
family as well now, you know,
and that's a whole new paint job too. I mean, because I mean, I finished off in 2017. I released my last album, my 8-string semi-concept album, Emanations, and I also did 2 books that year. Only one's musical, one's just a bucket list humor book called Fictionary, made of just fake words for 300 pages.
I was going to talk about that. That looks like quite a fun book.
It's fun, and I have like notes on my that came together for like 2 years on the notes in my iPhone, and now I have like another huge note just accumulating. It's like, I don't know if a second edition or, but yeah, I mean, that was probably the most output for 1 year. I did a full length album, more or less. I mean, it depends on where you draw that line, but 9 on the CD, 7 on the digital, but 2 books. And then the thing is, like, I meant to keep that going. I wanted to keep the album a year thing going for as long as I could.
I was going to ask that as well, but I guess like the family thing, and I suspect COVID doesn't help. And...
No, that's not helping either. Because I mean, like the next year, I did actually write another album in 2018. I wrote a whole album. It's just, I mean, not the lyrics and the vocals, everything else. The songs are written. I got another album sitting right there on that same hard drive. Also, Gnosis is just sitting there. I like I do almost every year. I pretty much devote an entire week somewhere in the summer usually, because I write a little bit in the spring, and then I burn out after like a month of that, and I'm like, all right, let's do this marathon, and I just set aside a week, and I'm just like, I crank out most of whatever album comes out that year in like a week, and I'm just writing. As soon as I'm done with the song, I don't even listen to it again. I just keep going, and by the time I'm done, I got an album I've practically never heard before because it's all new to me. I didn't take any time to get used to it, and I just kind of quick get it done and try to get it out by the end of the year each time, or had, you know. And so I got almost that far, and then like that year though, we suddenly found out we're having a baby. So I'm like, oh, okay, and so, you know, we had to kind of shuffle our house around. The studio's in a different part of the house now. We had to open up a bedroom, you know. So that kind of, you know. So that year, all I ended up doing musically related was actually releasing that Twisted Sister cover of The Price.
Oh, that was really good.
On a whim. Yeah. Thank you. I loved that song. That was probably my earliest musical influence, even before Iron Maiden, really.
Yeah. That must have been
I was into that
tough.
when it came out.
That must have been tough to sing, actually. It's quite high register, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that was very hard. That was
stuck there.
That was one of the hardest things I've had to sing at all. And I mean, and I don't think I can hold a torch to Dee Snider, because that guy's voice, I mean, that cover really taught me to truly appreciate what that guy can do. His voice is amazing. Like, on the level,
even now,
just as a casual listener, I never really appreciated, but oh my God.
Even recently, like his voice is still great now. Yeah, he's amazing.
He's truly amazing.
Because I do remember you saying,
2018. That's really all I ended up getting out.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. I'm recording an Old Son of album. I do remember you saying that. I'm like, yeah. But will you ever? Will it ever see you?
You know, and like,
yeah.
It will.
So there's a bit of a lag. There's a bit of a lag here. Sorry.
Yeah, a bit. Yeah, and it's probably going to be a bit more of a lag. I mean, so like, you know, so I got the cover out in 2018. I don't think I released anything in 2019. All right, yeah, I did like 2 guest solos, one for a band called Desolate Mantra, and the other one is for a friend of mine, Jason Kiesling, who's also one of my students at Shredmentor. But I'm thinking I'm going to be working on another one of his pretty soon too. And as kind of part of like the Shredmentor side of things, I have this songwriting program, and ended up kind of sort of co-producing an album for one of my other students for his band After Autumn. So I did things, but they're not really something you'd expect to see from me necessarily, and it wasn't like a full album. So I was doing things, and I did actually write another book last year, the top secret book of practice routines. But I've sort of been just hitting Shredmentor like 100% of the time with pretty much since 2018. So a lot of that has kind of, between that and finding out we're going to have a kid at that point, you know, it's definitely been like, all right, everything's kind of on hold until we figure out how to do this, how to be parents. So, but I mean, like with what I did earlier this year, I finally got like a single out. And in terms of going back to the old Sonu thing, I'm kind of starting to entertain the school of thought that would be just kind of releasing these individual tracks as singles. I think a lot of them stand really well on their own, and it would be a nice thing to at least just continually have some output. And it's definitely something more manageable. I mean, with the song I did earlier this year with Sycophant, I kind of feel like I want to do an album like that. Maybe before I even get that old Sonu thing done, I have the next song. It's ready for lyrics. I know what it's about. I just gotta piece it together. It's a little over 3 minutes long. It's called Quiet Desperation. It's basically, this is going to be a brutal technical death metal album with basically just a scathing calling out of different kinds of narcissists.
Oh,
that's basically
cool.
sort of, that's what Sycophant was. That's sort of really what that just was. And I mean, but that's just one form that it takes. And so at the same time, I mean, like I got a bunch of other types that sort of, there's a pattern that, you know, and I think we can all sort of recognize that sort of type. And so that's sort of what I kind of envision. I always finish whatever I think I can get done now or soonest.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I chaotically prioritize things.
Cool.
I stopped for 3 years.
Yeah, what I was saying, actually, there's actually a slight lag in the YouTube thing, anyway, yeah, but we'll get around that. It'll be fine. I was Sack Moonshine's arse, actually. I was quite interested in. You did the cover the price, but you could only have it streamed for a certain amount of time. Why was that?
It was sort of a money thing. I mean, in order to actually release a cover, you have to basically go through like the Harry Fox agency, and you have to purchase the rights to have that out there. You're basically, I mean, this is where it comes down to, you know, that someone else owning the intellectual property. And having gone through that process the one time, I basically purchased it for a year, and I kind of just decided not to renew, because as much as I got a good response, I was really, it was a nice thing. I wanted to do it, but it wasn't particularly representative of my music.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I couldn't really justify to continue to pay to because you got to renew it every year, and so I just kind of had to take it down. And so it's sort of, I kind of had to just let that one go on the shelf, probably permanently. Anybody that anybody that heard it and has it, I appreciate the support on it. I couldn't validate continue going on with it.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to say the Sycophant. I mean, that song is so complicated. It's almost like an album. I love that song, but it must be really
right.
it must be so difficult to put together.
It definitely was a new frontier for me. One of my big influences from all the way when it came out was like Necrophagist, Epitaph, and actually, I mean, I knew about Necrophagist before that on their demo before that, or if you call that a demo, but like that is the epitome of technical death metal to me, I think. And so, and it was always, this unreachable standard that their music is still so much more technical than this too. And I mean, if you really break this song down, it's almost still got a pop song structure to it. I just that's sort of how I think in a structured kind of way. But it's it's something I want to do more of, because I am sort of just kind of dipping my toe in the water with this style, and it's something that I do love playing, but it's so challenging, and it's it's something I'd like to definitely also, you know, like with every other style of music that I've kind of done an album with, it's something I'd sort of want to, you know, let's see what I can do with that style kind of thing, you know. And so I'd like to accumulate a whole album worth of that eventually.
Yeah, cool. So are you still going to release the Old Son of album Todesbunden, or is that going to be put on shelf until a further time?
For Todesbunden, I mean, we were talking about that today, actually here. And I mean, it's just a matter of kind of logistically balancing all the different things that are going on, and, you know, being a parent and just everything else that we need to do to you know, stay afloat. And so, I mean, it does come down to a lot to do with being a parent and where you're going to record. But I mean, we do have a room in the house that is out of earshot from most of other parts of the house that we could probably bring like a laptop and record it. So it's a matter largely for Todesbunden of getting the lyrics done, and for Old Son of, I guess it's kind of the same, because most of that material is recorded already. And it's largely for Todesbunden. We are in a contract, so we really have no way of, even if we finished it this month and submitted it to the label. I mean, they sat on that for like 7 months last time. So, and that's when we didn't keep them waiting for 12 years. So I mean, I have no way of knowing really when that would come out, but that would be a complete album if it did. With Old Sonoof, I'm thinking very much about releasing individual tracks, some of the best stuff to get people interested. And now that I've done Sycophant and this other song, Quiet Desperation, that I'm working on right now, I feel like I need to go back to the Old Sonoof material and kind of address some of the production, because it's largely mixed as well. Even though I know I just have a vocal setting, I can just drop my vocals in there and they'll fit in the mix already. But I mean, I think I need to get more technical. So I'm in a trap right now. This year, I mean, I've been binge listening to just brutal death metal ever since this song. And I'm like, what else is out there? What else do they do? Let me refocus on death metal right now. And so I'm like, yes, I've been listening to Iron Maiden off and on for a month, but I've been listening to brutal death metal since April. Like, also.
Awesome.
So I'm just like, it's a phase, you know. It was Baroque music for 6 months before that, and so, which weirdly led into the brutal death metal. This guitar, I tuned it down a half step so I can play Baroque music. And so I was practicing Telemann and Bach and Vivaldi pieces. I did a couple videos and stuff of actually playing some of that stuff, and that directly, strangely, informed some of the things I did in some of the opening riffs and stuff like that in Sycophant. So it's you know, I have phases, sometimes between 2 weeks and 6 months long, where I'll just binge on a topic. And so
you know what it is? It's a really cool midlife crisis. That's what it is.
It is. I've always had these. I've always called them 2 week phases, because I really kind of have just like I just dive headlong into something for like 2 weeks. But I mean, right now this is sort of the most I've ever spread myself thin this year, and it's a blessing and a curse. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, the downside of COVID is very obvious, but the downtime from COVID has been sort of a blessing, because I mean, this year I've also finally gone down the rabbit hole of video effects, and I'm like, I dabbled with like After Effects back in 2008, but the After Effects that's out now is just that's a toy back there. This is amazing now. And so, but I also simultaneously got a 3D printer, so you know, I can make stuff, you know, for just, you know, gadgets, fixing up the house more than anything, making toys for my kid. But that also made it so that I like, well, what if I want to make my own thing? So now I have to get into Blender, and I'm doing 3D modeling and animation, and eventually game production. But that 3D stuff now brings me right back to After Effects. So it's looping into itself. And this is something, I mean, the 3D thing, I'm so glad that Blender exists, because back when you had to pay $2,000 plus, dollars for one of these 3D programs. I mean, it was pre-YouTube largely too. So I mean, between YouTube and Blender, I'm finally doing something I've been meaning to do for I don't know, 20 years now. So it's sort of bucket list year right now. So it is a little midlife crisis-y, but man, it's great. I mean, it feels great because it's like you can, anything you want to imagine happening, you can actually make it visually and real life, like, like actually happen on the screen. And so it's a little like playing God. I can create a world, I can create people in it, I can make them do whatever I want, I can make them self-destruct. I'm probably gonna make them self-destruct because that's cool as hell.
Yeah.
Make them blow up. So that's sort of just been, I've been in this video effects rabbit hole by starting to try to make a music video for Sycophant, really, which is that on the shelf. I got lots of room on the shelf, but it's, and at the same time, I mean, it's great because this is something that I can also do. I managed to do some videos for Empire and the 2 songs that they released, so that was awesome. That was a very fun experience too. So the timing couldn't have worked out better there. So I mean, it all works its way back to music, but this is sort of one of those other things that I'm sort of installing as abilities, so that I can, like, all the different video ideas that Lori and I have ever talked about, like, it'd be great for that song is this, like, yeah, okay, well, where are we going to get an army of chariots though? I can make some now. Well,
yeah,
this month,
that's amazing, isn't it? What you can do.
Yeah, I can make them spit up dust and run into each other and have blood gush out everywhere. I can make the whole thing happen, if I put enough time into it. So this is sort of one of those things that's been needing to happen for a long time. And so finally, in a way, I mean, COVID sucks and we really got it. It's out of control over here, but it's, largely I haven't been terribly affected by it other than just having plenty of time on my hands.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, you can make cool videos on your phone now. I mean, the technology now is crazy. But I want to talk about the your video effects because again, like with MDR, like with Grave Huffer as well, it feels like a bit of a family. And you work with Imperium Fire. Obviously, Trisha is a DJ here at Metal Devastation Radio. So how did that happen? How did you get that started with Imperium Fire?
Like, that was the timing really couldn't have been better. Like I said, I mean, I had just finished Sycophant and I'm like, I want to make a video for this. And I was like, you know what? Let's blow the dust off of my After Effects stuff. I have all these old sessions from 2008 back when I first dabbled in it, but I started amassing this ridiculous YouTube video playlist and just trying stuff and I've got hundreds of After Effects sessions on my computer already just since April. And but I don't know, maybe a month in, and I was just scrolling through Facebook, and Trisha was asking if anybody knew, had any familiarity with After Effects, because I think she was working on trying to do it herself, but she was getting glitches, which immediately I was like, yeah, I can picture that. It inserts a keyframe or something there, and so I just got the artwork, and we talked a little bit about like what she was looking for. I was like, how about this? And she's like, yes. And it just it really worked out well, and I got to try some things too, because I mean it's essentially it's one of those videos like where the album art is on the screen and like a nice background and you're listening to this, but I wanted to kind of bring that up, she wanted to bring it up. It's her idea. So I was just thinking of ways that I could kind of do that. And she, the visuals that I put in, especially into the first one for Corruption, that one, it was her idea to do black fire. I had this cool fire burst that just like blast out at the camera, like in your face. She's like, what if it was black? Is there a way to do that? I'm like, yeah, I think I can do that. It's fire. So I was like, let's just put some dark gray, some slightly brown, and like a lighter gray for the highlights, and see what that looks like. And like right away, it's just I put like a glow, but it's black glow.
It was cool
because that's what color a black fire would have to glow, right? And it's so cool. I mean, and so I'm just trying some of these really cool particle effects that just create this amorphous, almost somewhat living type of creature type thing, like the way that I had the artwork sort of appear or disappear. It's like, again, it's just like, if you can imagine it, let's see what it looks like. And it's just like, usually it looks pretty cool, if you spend enough time on it. And so that went really well, and we ended up. And she had another song coming up, and had some different ideas, and that one was a lot of fun. That was almost like I making that second video, Gathering Storm. That felt like I was almost being another member of the band. The lightning itself, I largely followed the riff or the drums, but there were like 5 different areas of the screen that would flicker with lightning along to whatever was going on in the song. So that was so much more to orchestrate. It was a way more involved process. And then just like, once or twice, I think it was like a lightning bolt. Like, I like to surprise them. So it's just, you're not going to get this provided by YouTube with the hashtag channel for your topic or whatever. It's needs to be a little more. But I mean, yeah, it really couldn't have been better timing, because I mean, I was really just like, I'm going to become an expert at After Effects. And then like, oh, anybody know anything about After Effects? Freshly, yes, I suddenly do. Let's talk. It couldn't have been a better timing for that, but
that's cool. But I mean, and it almost, even though we're not involved, it sort of feels like Metal Devastation Radio is slightly involved with that, because you've come
absolutely.
on, and yeah,
totally, yeah.
I was going to ask that.
Creating this place for us to gather, I mean, has been hugely instrumental in a lot of the things that are happening here. So I mean, it's a great breeding ground for collaboration, by all means. Yeah. And thank you, Zach, if you're still watching.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Yeah. We got the Grey Man on. We got Werewolf by Lunchtime. We got Lady Red as well, Vicky Grundy. So hi to everyone. I was going to say, how did your association with Metal Devastation Radio happen anyway? Because obviously we've seen you for years. You tune into our shows. We appreciate the support. How did it all start? How did you find out about us?
I think I did something. It's all kind of garbly on your end for the moment. Let me see. I'm sorry. Go ahead and talk again.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I good?
It's still chopping up. I don't know if it's just from my end. It was doing it right at the very beginning of the video, but
because I can hear you fine.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah. How about me? Am I still choppy?
Still doing it. I'm hoping it. I don't know what I just like to look at the chat on mine, and it's not.
I might be your end. I think I'm all right. My end. Still choppy.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time making out what you're saying now.
Damn. How about now? Sorry. Still choppy?
I can hear that you are talking, but it's just sort of...
Yeah. Graham, I'm just finding out if it's my end. Graham, can you hear me? Oh. How am I still choppy? Oh, damn.
I'm not sure if that's what you said, but we want to try reconnecting.
Yeah, okay, let's... one minute. Graham? I don't know, he's choppy, his end. I can hear him all right, but nope, is it our internet or?
It just cleared up.
Hey.
Yeah, it's back now. It just had a stutter effect, so I couldn't make out what you were saying.
We can edit this anyway, but how am I now?
Yeah, perfect now. It's back.
Oh,
I'm not going to touch anything at all. Comments, let me know, because I can't see them, and I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. Just to get back to what I was saying. The MDR thing, like you say, is a great. It's kind of family, and people have shared stuff, and Grave Huffer even got a record deal for us, which I thought was really cool, and. It's a good place to come and share. But I was just wondering how your association with MDR started. How did you find out about Metal Devastation Radio? And we appreciate you tuning in,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it actually, it started like right around, it occurred to me to start trying to get some radio airplay, I think, for like right after I released Labyrinth of Dreams at the end of 2014. And I started kind of reaching out, and Zach was very responsive, and I think I reached out probably to several DJs at MDR, not realizing they were all part of the same station at the time.
Right.
Just starting to reach out to anybody and everybody at first, and it's always been such a supportive place. It kind of kept me coming back all these years, and I mean, that's sort of been just a regular spot I come back to. So I mean, cool. I kind of just started there. I mean, and I mean, Grace and Mike were some of the first ones that I think I interacted with too, and going all the way back. Yeah, all those years. I mean, between Zach, Grace, and Mike, especially, I think those were the first ones that I really got in touch with, and they've just been supportive all these years.
Excellent. I was talking of Imperium Fire and black metal. There was one band that I forgot to mention actually. Where did Krieg? Where did that fit in? Because that was more of a black metal thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was like raw black metal. That was like 98 going into 99. That was a very brief little thing too. It was a studio involvement. It was, things kind of ended badly. That's my fault. And we did kind of touch base a while after that, but that material eventually I think got released like in the early, like the late first decade of the 2000s. Because I mean, I think to the level I was a dick there, I think that it became a painful experience for him to release it. So it really ended up not, it was only a couple months we were kind of working together and we were putting this album together. And so I think there is in fact an album out there with some of my playing on it there. And there's, I know I did some classical guitar and I think I did a solo. Check it out if you want. I haven't heard it in about as long as it's been since I recorded it. Yeah. I think it was very exciting at the time, but I was pretty much a dick at that point. So I ruined it.
You learn, don't you? I mean, like, you live and learn through life. You make mistakes. We've all been dicks. That's it. That's just life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was at a stage in my life where I was, for some reason, trying to be the biggest dick I could be, and I don't know why that was appealing to me at the time. But... that's how that went.
So let's talk about your solo albums actually, because what prompted you to go solo, and your first solo record was maybe a complete turn. Really, it was an instrumental. Kind of melodic album, acoustic really. So what prompted you to go solo?
I had gotten this the acoustic that I used on that album that I used for everything pretty much is actually an acoustic modeling guitar. So kind of like it's made by Line 6, who's famous for their amp modeling, but they actually make guitar modeling guitars that with the switch of a knob, you can actually get all these different kind of coveted classic guitar models and stuff like that. And I kind of picked that up a couple years before I did that album, and noticed how easy it is to get a nice clean sound. You don't have to have silence in the room because you're not really miking anything. And I just been messing around with that on some Totus bonded material and stuff, on the Shelf Forever stuff, and a couple things that are actually on Mythos, which will eventually be released, but I kind of was messing around with that for a little while, and I'm in Maryland. I say DC, but I'm actually in Maryland because it's right. I mean, everything around DC is DC. But we have like this. What is it? The Maryland State Arts Council has this sort of this contest, and it varies on what the criteria, what artistic medium is in the running each year. But like every other year, it's like music composition, and so like in 2011, I started to write a piece of material because it was something about a music composition. So I started writing this instrumental piece, which now is called Reflections, the song Reflections. Yeah. So that was actually something I started putting together as part of a contest, and I just never even submitted it. And and that was like early in the year 2011, and I started kind of writing some other material in a similar acoustic vein toward the summer of that year. And that was the first year that, like maybe around fall, I decided, what if I just crank out a bunch of songs in like 2 weeks and don't listen to them, because before that I would always just listen to everything on loop for like a month after I wrote it. Just I'd live in that soundscape for forever until I'm like, okay, sick of it, new song. But this time I was like, what if I just don't listen to them at all? And then, at the end of 2 weeks, I finished that song from the early in the year, and I finished the one from the summer, and I got the 2 weeks worth of stuff, and threw this Rachmaninoff thing I had done for my mom for her birthday a year or two before that on there too. And I was like, I got enough for an album here. And then I sat on it for a whole year because I wasn't confident that it's, good enough. And suddenly, 2012 rolls around, and then I just had this on the shelf where everything ends up. I'm like, what? I could release this right now. I'm going to release it on Halloween. Fuck it. I'm doing it. And I did. And so then at that point, I realized, that style, in the first place is basically what happens when you take neoclassical shred guitar and put it on an acoustic guitar. That's basically, it sounds a lot more flamenco-esque.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
But it takes on a different quality a little bit. But that's basically what I'm doing there. That's pretty much what I do when I solo for metal too. Because of the lack of distortion, I can get away with a little bit of a different style there, because you can play notes over each other and they sound nice and clean and pure. Whereas it gets kind of messy quickly if you start playing multiple notes into distortion. So it's a little different, but it's essentially what it becomes. And it's pretty much how I play whenever I go into a clean sound anyway. So I figured, I might as well start right off not being pigeonholed. I'd already been kind of pushing myself as a metal guitarist on MySpace and early on in Facebook at that time. So, I was like, let's do something completely different that no one is going to see coming.
Yeah, that's cool. And then straight after that, it was an old Son of album, wasn't it? So something completely different. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, that was basically. I had been waiting all that time. Like I said, I started El Sonuf in '96, but I just didn't have the confidence that I was really ready. I wasn't ready for people. Like, if that did well, I wasn't ready for people to know who I was as a guitarist based on the level of skill that I then had. I think I finally found my confidence in 2012. And you know what? So early that year, suddenly Old Sonuf became a project that actually had vocals, because all the way up until then, it actually was an instrumental project. And I just had this crazy idea with the song Parasite and started doing it. And the whole thing, it really worked out well. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
This is not an instrumental project. I have a whole extra facet I got to deal with. But coming out of having released Reflections, I was like, okay, that's one. Let's see. That's 1 year. Let's see if I can do this every year now. And managed to do it for a while.
Yeah.
And
that became
different sort of the point.
Yeah, and different sounding albums as well, because the next album, Labyrinth of Dreams, was more of a kind of traditional metal album, I would say. So that was really cool. Was that what do you find easier, the clean singing or the sort of growling?
They both kind of come fairly naturally to me. I don't have any vocal training, and I'm just kind of hacking my way through it, to be honest. But it kind of, I know my limitations more with the clean singing because of the fact that I practiced a great deal in the car over the years of long distance driving and stuff like that, when no one's around to hear me and making embarrassing noises and stuff. I got to really, really explore the sounds I'm able to make with my voice, which actually, really it just stems from kind of doing, imitations of voices since I was a little kid even. So, I've just always been mimicking sounds and stuff like that. So kind of developed my death vocals early on and my singing voice very early on. And so I sort of know what I can do, and I kind of write what I did. I think what helps it along so that they're both nearly equal in challenge now is that I learned to write for the clean voice for where I'm already comfortable, and instead of trying to be a singer, because I used to I was trying to be a different singer, and my voice just sits more comfortably just not really, really high up.
Yeah.
I can hit high if I save my high notes, because I know I know myself now, and I know I can hit those higher notes for a moment with a shrill scream, and I know how to get that sound when I want it. But I have to be careful not to do it too much, because I actually won't be able to hit that note again if I do it too many times. So just
you do hit some high notes, though. I mean, you know, it's quite impressive.
I know I can get up to a B, like a,
yeah.
I can do that, but I'm not going to
all the time
now. But I mean, and I won't be able to do it again right after, because that's like if I go to the absolute highest range I have, I won't be able to do it again at all.
Yeah.
But you know,
cool.
So yeah, I mean, I think they're both equally difficult, or yeah, I mean, yeah, I won't say they're both equally easy. They're both equally difficult, because when I'm doing my death vocals, although it's nothing like a King Diamond style of vocals, I am actually very influenced by the way that when you listen to something like King Diamond Abigail, like when I first heard King Diamond Abigail, or maybe it was something from Abigail. I mean, like all these different voices. I didn't know how many singers. Like, how many singers are in this band? What's going on? I mean, what the hell? And that is actually very much what I'm kind of trying to do. And in fact, even a little bit of influence from Devil Doll. I'm not sure who's familiar with that.
No.
That's extremely proggy. But like that guy's vocals are for the few.
No.
Mr. Doctor. That is also an exploration into what the human voice can do. It's
cool.
Worth one listen. One song is 1 hour. But I mean, anyway, it's this sort of school of thought of like change voices per phrase, constantly morphing voices. And that's how I kind of try to do that with my death metal vocals, just to keep it, pretty, varied up and interesting textures. It's the same thing I try to do with my soloing on the guitar too, is I kind of try to morph between textures to kind of keep it interesting, because I mean, I'm the first listener, and if I find it too monotonous or boring, then I can expect the next person will too.
Yeah, cool. And the next album again was another Old Son of I think it was Iconoclast. That was your second Old Son, which I really love. One thing I really like actually about your death metal folk, I think I mentioned before, is you can understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
It's clear.
That was important to me, because lyrics to me are the hardest part, probably without a doubt. Even though I know exactly what the song is called and what it's about, conveying that is way harder, because I found it's really, really easy to come up with really lousy vocals or lyrics. I'm sorry.
Lyrics, yeah.
I write my lyrics as I'm recording the vocals, so it's easy for me to slip in to mix them up here. But yeah, coming up with really cheesy lyrics is really easy, and I don't want to do that. I can convey the same idea, but how it comes off is really very important. And I've heard so many cheesy lyrics, and I mean what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I very little of what I ever have said lyrically is just is put on. It's just another platform for philosophy for me, really, when it comes time to do that. So I'm trying to paint a picture, and the lyrics, especially for Olsonuf, are very much part of the concept that is Olsonuf. So I didn't want them to get lost in there.
Yeah, well, your lyrics aren't cheesy, that's for sure. They tend to be quite deep, but also mystical as well. You seem to write a lot about dark mysticism, things like that, so it's always quite interesting.
That's all part of that project, for sure.
Yeah. So your next album was Escape, and I saw leanings. I don't know if you agree, but I saw leanings towards like doom almost.
That was my doom album, pretty much.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And then, of course, Emanations, your last album, which had I don't know, to me, it had a little bit of a mix of Old Son of and Escape. It kind of felt a bit like that, but really good album as well. But
I'd say that the line was starting to blur between the two projects by that album a little bit. And I feel like because of that, it pushed Olsonuf over in this other direction, which would have been heard by now if things kept on the same schedule. But I've kind of gone back to some of the earlier influences with Olsonuf for me, which were a little bit more symphonic, or at least the more use of keyboards and synths in general. So when you do finally hear some of that stuff, you will actually hear a lot more involvement with keys, and it's becoming more symphonic and atmospheric and kind of theatrical, I think, which is really where I was. One of the earliest Olsonuf influences was actually Therion, like
Right.
Lee
Yeah.
area theory.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of what, like, when I was starting Old Sonoof, and then Theory on Thay Lee came out like that year or right about that, and I'm like, yeah, that I love. I need an element like that. And so I think, like, especially with like Emanations, having done some of the choir, or, the me choir, I feel like that's probably going to end up in Old Sonoof as an element here and there too, because it's very much a part of it. And in addition to what I did there with those choirs in the Emanations album, this year, among the many things I'm also kind of studying, I've discovered the Russian school of octavism, which are the bass vocalists that go like an octave lower than the normal bass register, and discovered that I actually have a much lower range than I thought. So there's going to be some, and I love that Russian choir sound. It's like it's got the beauty of almost like a Palestrina, kind of almost like what would that be, like a Renaissance era choir, but with this and like full this huge sound, and it's projecting. So I mean, like, this will be something that I kind of try to play at, but we'll see. But I can foresee that making its way in there, because that's so much a part of, I mean, it's that Eastern Orthodox Church choir sound, and that's what this Old Sonoof album is about, is the early church. It was very much in Constantinople. It was a Greek thing, really, and that's they just kept going east, and that's why there's such a similarity in the aesthetics between the different the Orthodox churches. And so I'm trying to paint a picture and do a sort of a theatrical thing here, and so I think that's probably going to make its way in there too. But yeah, the Emanations had to push Old Sonoof over into another direction before these two projects are indistinguishable, and there's no point in having to.
Yeah, but of course you also I get you've pushed into the tech deaf area now, so that's something a bit more different. Is there any other sort of musical styles that you would want to do in the future?
Yeah, actually, in 2017, I actually wrote a 3-song EP that I didn't release, and it has no guitar at all on it. It's electronic, kind of. It still has this sort of atmospheric, kind of dreamy type of dark aesthetic, but it's I might change. Like, there's a solo in there. I'm not sure. I might actually go in there and play some guitar on like one song. But it was called Synaptic Forms, and it's 2 songs from about that era. But one was actually from 2007, but one of my early works that I actually just really like, and I would like people to eventually hear it as a release.
That'd be cool.
I might just do that, because that's been written pretty much. I was thinking about doing that as a 4th thing, in addition to my 2 books and Emanations in 2017. I came close to just releasing that, but it was like, withdrawing from life and just doing that it makes a lonely life for a spouse, and couldn't do that further to Lori, and it just wasn't important that I also get that out that year. And so not that important, but I also have another project which we kind of worked on it, which is in that vein as well, which would involve Lori's vocals. It would be that, basically, my own particular kind of electronic music. And it's not like really dance beat-ish at all. It's not EDM by any means. It's I don't know what to describe it as, but it's sort of there is an Aphex Twin quality to some of the way I approach the percussion, but it's really about like almost like a trance-inducing atmosphere at the same time. So.
Oh, that's cool. Hopefully you get to see. Yeah, you got to release these albums. We want these albums.
I gotta get this. At least some singles. It's just to kind of put maybe some things I'll have to start up on my Bandcamp really soon. So these aren't even gonna have vocals, so I should just start putting these out there.
I was gonna say, like,
some orchestral stuff too.
Oh, right.
Cool. I've been meaning to do various orchestral things. I may get around to it. I mean, I started messing around with some various. I basically want to do a really dark orchestral version of Christmas music. I generally hate most Christmas music. There are a couple there are a couple.
Yeah.
Generally, I kind of tend to like the things that are from England in the 1800s. So there's not that, God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. I like that song a lot, genuinely. And that's actually, I'm almost kind of thinking about doing a lesson pack based on, because that's something I won't get sued for using people's song or something. It's a strong melody, and it's something that people all generally know. And so I'm thinking about doing a kind of a Shred Mentor lesson pack of melodic embellishments based on that melody. But anyway, but I'm thinking about doing something like taking a song like Jingle Bells and just distorting the living hell out of it, rather than dun, 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 just massive dun, 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 just much different vibe, but just darkening the hell out of it, and to the point where you can only barely recognize what it is.
That sounds like a crazy idea.
I've been thinking about doing it for years, and I just know, the year goes by faster and faster every year. It feels like, so I don't get around to it. But
I like the song "Drummer Boy." I've always liked the Christmas song "Drummer Boy." That's the only one I like. But yeah,
I'll add that to the list, and maybe I always reserve the right in whatever I'm doing to just back out and be like, nope, abort. That song's not happening now. Yeah, it happens on every album, but you know what? I'll add Drummer Boy to the list. I'll dedicate it to it if it works.
Oh, cheers. So, as far as like music goes and recording the albums, you always play guitar, you play bass, you sing, but you always program the drums. Was you ever consider using a drummer? Can you play drums yourself, or is it just easier just to program? You're used to it.
I cannot play drums whatsoever.
Really?
Terribly. Yeah. I do not belong behind a drum set. I also live in a townhouse, and just the guitar lessons that I have taught here have, made enough of an issue. So playing drums in here, we have some hand drums in the house, and I will record those. I'm actually I'm a very pretty adept hand drummer on the lap.
Yeah.
And so I can do that on any surface, really. So in terms of doing a darbuka, I actually have recorded some stuff with that here and there, and but actually playing real drums, nope, not for me. Now I have considered hiring someone. I just always get to this point where I'm like, I could just get this album done right now. I'm just going to do that. This is cheaper. I don't have to run anything by anybody. I don't have to adapt to someone else's way of communication. I don't have to pay any money. I don't have to, it's so easy for it to become the more attractive option every time for me to just keep doing it. There are a couple specific drummers I've kind of had on my radar that I would like to probably work with, but I just don't know if I'm ever going to, I don't know. I would have to I have to get out of my bubble, and that's the biggest part of the challenge, really, because I can see the finish line right over there. I can just, no, we don't need anybody else involved. No. And I'm just like, so, and again, I'm just looking at all this stuff that's on the shelf. I'm like, what I can get that done right now. And I just put everything else off, and I just crank that thing out. So it looks like maybe I've done a bunch of things, but really you should see the things I'm not doing.
Yeah. I was going to say, can you imagine trying to teach the drummer sycophant?
Yeah, and so
you'll be there forever.
Actually, with the particular drummers that I have in mind, one in particular, actually, I don't know if he'd be up to it, but I would actually ask Samus66 if he would want to do it, because his video about blast beats has informed my vocabulary about the blast beats that in fact appeared in that song. So I think that more than likely, he would actually have an easy time with that song, probably, because they're
no way, really.
He's.
I think it's learning it. Yeah, I think it's learning all the changes more than just being technical. There's so many changes in that song.
Yeah, and luckily though, it's that song. That's one of the things I like to do. It's deceptively complex. It's complex in a way, obviously on an obvious level, but the time signature is 3/8. It's just 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 through the whole damn song. But I keep changing up the way that it's being accented. So sometimes it feels like halftime, sometimes it feels like full time. But everything's ultimately going to be some multiple of 3. But I like to make common times sound technical by moving the accents all over the place, but
Yeah.
then also I like to take weird time signatures and make them sound like normal time signatures by doing something that's repetitive enough where you might not notice that was 5 beats or 7 beats because it was just that was 7. But you wouldn't notice because it just feels normal, right? And so I make odd time feel normal and make normal time feel odd. And so this was Sycophant is not as complex as it sounds, but it gives me something constant to work with.
Yeah, cool. So I was just before we go, then something I need to ask actually. Would you ever consider playing live solo? I mean, it's becoming more of a common thing. People playing live solo now. Would that be a possibility?
It has never really been a high priority, and I mean, right around, as I said, we with Todespon, we actually are about to play a show in 2012, and then didn't. And in the preparation to do that show, before we decided not to do it, we actually built a live rack that would enable me to pretty much do it if I wanted to. I don't know. I think that by the time that era of my life rolled around, I don't feel a strong drive to go to play live at all too much, really. Like I said, our last show was 2010. I haven't played any of the shows with anybody else since then either. It's been going on 11 years since I've played, and I love parts of it, the response of people and the appreciation of, and in fact, just seeing the people there who've come to see us play it's almost undescribable how satisfying that is. Unfortunately, because of the step that we took with, the setup that comes along with the backing tracks in order to put on the show we need to put on, it takes longer than the standard 5 minutes that most people want to give you to do your setup if you're not the headliner. And so I'd have to get a headlining gig, or have my ducks in a row way in advance. And so I could, and I definitely have thought about it a bunch of times, and maybe one day I'll do it, not ruin anything out. Definitely not until COVID is a distant memory.
Yeah.
I mean, not worth it to me.
Yeah. It's like I was talking to Grave. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I mean, because I've thought through exactly how I would mix down and which voice of it, which I would play to have one continuous guitar part, and which parts need to be in the backing track. I don't want things to be missing exactly. Harmonies are very much part of the composition, and if that's not there, you didn't hear quite the song that you came to hear. So yeah, I've kind of planned all that stuff out, and I know exactly which part is like the song and what the listener would miss if it was gone or whatever. But yeah, I just kind of keep, there's a big rack full of gear in my closet that is basically a box full of that ability if I wanted to, but probably not.
Oh, yeah. Oh well. We'll keep hoping that you'll come to the UK one day and play.
I would love to come to the UK, whether to play live or not.
Just to come to the UK, yeah.
I was there in 2016 actually, and oh man, I miss it. I was in Scotland mostly, but Northern England. Oh, man,
that's right. I remember you saying,
We just keep returning to that in our head. It's just, man.
Scotland's inspiring, especially the scenery.
Yeah. We drove around for like 3 weeks, just driving all over the place. Man, can't get enough of it.
Yeah. All right. Before we leave, just let everyone know where they can get hold of you. Obviously, you got your Shred Mentor and your website. Well, everything's on your website now, really, isn't it?
I do have a lot of it on my website. Primarily my website is a place to look at what my discography is. Bandcamp.com, jasonaaronwood.bandcamp.com is the place to go to buy most of that discography. If you're interested in the last Todespon album, that is todespon.bandcamp.com. It's the only one that's not on mine. And for anything guitar, related, if you want to, work on your own music and create your own albums, or anything to do with your own musicianship, shredmentor.com. I do a free introductory consultation and several different lesson packages from ranging from just guitar practice tools, just the stuff that I use to get better and stay better, and all the way up to like 4 lessons a month. So there's a range for everybody there. So trying to take all the stuff that I do with Old Stone Oof and my own albums and pass that on and make it, and show people like, hey, you know what? If you just do this, this, and this, you pretty much bypass all the other crap that everybody thinks you're supposed to do. And that's, so all the things that have been useful shortcuts to me to be able to get an album a year out when I have the time to do it. It's not really that hard. It's just, you need to know what's not actually necessary. And despite how many people say it is.
Yeah, cool. We'll put the links in the below in the description. And, we'll do that for you. So thanks a lot, Jason. I'll put this up on obviously YouTube. I'll put it up on Mixcloud, and over a couple of weeks I'll air this interview on Metal Devastation Radio. And just once again, thanks very much for the interview. It's great to finally meet you. And look forward to the next release, whatever it might be. Thanks very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. I can't wait to get it out to you. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.